Welcome to the Batman Villains of Old Time Radio, our amazing world of radio summer series where we examine the old-time radio careers of the talented performers who brought the 1960s TV Batman villains to life. Now from Boise, Idaho, here's your host, Adam Graham.
This week, our focus is on Vincent Price, who played Egghead. Price was an acting legend, best known for his work in the horror and supernatural genres. I didn't see him in a lot of things when I was growing up, as I wasn't big into horror, and I'm still really not. However, my life wasn't devoid of Vincent Price's work either. Probably the only time I saw him that I was conscious that this was Vincent Price was the Batman two-parter he appeared in Season 2 as Egghead in Egg Grows in Gotham and the Yegg Foes in Gotham. That's the story we'll discuss today. To my mind, I thought he did those two episodes, and then he did a bunch of horror movies. When I was much younger, I'd heard him playing Ratigan in the Disney movie The Great Mouse Detective. And he had played King Herod in the greatest stories of the Bible. And even though I didn't recognize him without his mustache, he did have a small part in the Ten Commandments. And I didn't make any of these connections for a long time. Actually, it was when I was playing The Adventures of the Saint on the Great Detectives podcast and listening to Price's work on other programs that I really came to appreciate his versatility. Yes, there were horror-based performances and villains aplenty, but he could also play the hero or do something comedic or unusual. Today, we're bringing you something that's a bit different for Price. He does play a ghost, sort of, or maybe, but this is much more of a fantasy story. It's an episode of Favorite Story. Favorite Story was a radio series from Ziv. Ziv syndicated many programs we played on various podcasts, and being in syndication allowed local or national companies to sponsor the series. So, in a way, they could compete with the Lux Radio Theater or Hollywood Startime, these other big nationally based syndicated anthology series. The original air date on today's program is January 14th, 1947, and the title is Mr. Shakespeare.
This is Ronald Coleman, inviting you to radio's most dramatic half hour, Favorite Story. The sad treatment of writers by the motion picture studios is a frequent subject of discussion here in Hollywood, especially among the writers. They will tell you that they slave and strain over their hot typewriters day in, day out, writing magnificent screenplays which are slashed and butchered before the cameras. And what does the poor writer have to show for all his work? Nothing but a miserable fortune. Well, frankly, there is some truth in the Hollywood writer's lament, for it has been said that even William Shakespeare himself couldn't get one of his plays on the screen without somebody in the front office rewriting his dialogue. Well, this gave a couple of writers an idea. Jerome Lawrence and Robert E. Lee decided to do a story about what might happen if the greatest of all playwrights could come back out of the past to work for a modern motion picture studio. They called their story Mr. Shakespeare, and it was broadcast around the world by the Armed Forces Radio Service. By vote, it was the favorite radio play of troops in every part of the globe. Spencer Tracy happened to hear it and named this amusing commentary on life in Hollywood as his favorite story. We're proud to bring you that splendid actor, Vincent Price, in the role of the Bard of Avon. So, if you're in a mood to go behind the scenes in crazy, charming Hollywood, I think you'll enjoy the next half hour. It's Spencer Tracy's favorite story, starring Vincent Price as Mr. Shakespeare.
It can be done.
It's the most absurd proposition of the... This is a gag. Nat Wolf sent you here.
I don't know, Mr. Wolf. You have my references right there. I'm not a fanatic and I'm not a fake.
I suppose you want money in advance.
I wouldn't touch it. Mr. Green, I've come to you with a perfectly honest, straightforward proposition. If you're not interested, there are other studios in Hollywood.
No. Wait a minute, Mrs.
Tidball.
Mrs. Tidball. What do you expect me to do when somebody walks into my office and asks me to put a ghost under contract?
Mr. Green, I do not believe in ghosts. The individual I shall recreate from the past will differ from your other employees only in that he shall consist of ectoplasm instead of protoplasm.
Yeah?
When this individual has arrived, materialized, shall we say, and you are completely satisfied, then you may draw me a check for $10,000.
Uh-huh.
You must understand why I'm doing this. My young niece, to whom I'm very devoted, will be ready for college this fall. I want her to be amply provided for. That is the only reason that I would consent to this commercialization of my talent.
How long does it take?
Well, that depends on a number of factors. I should say several hours. It's a great physical strain.
Uh-huh. And how many people could you bring back?
Oh, just one. I wouldn't think of bringing back more than one.
Oh, frankly, Mrs.
Tidball.
Frankly, I don't believe you. But I'm a gambler, a little bit crazy, and this is Hollywood. You got yourself a deal. Your niece is practically invasive.
I've got a great idea. Have her get Boccaccio.
Oh, no. Boston will never stand still for it.
Then how about Milton? Are you kidding?
In 14 years in the motion picture business, this is the craziest conference I've ever been in.
Now, look, guys. I know that this sounds out of this world, but somehow I have a feeling that this dame is legit.
Okay, Arthur. You're the doctor.
Can we get a team? Gilbert and Sullivan, maybe.
No. She'll only bring back one.
They could do a great hunk of stuff for the Andrews sisters.
Hey, how about Sarah Bernhardt?
She'd die at the box office. Get a name you can plaster on the billboards. Cleopatra, Helena Troy.
I say, let's get the biggest name in music. Beethoven, Bach, Tchaikovsky.
No, Meredith. I think that's too specialized. We ought to get somebody who knows theater. Every department.
You'd look a long time for a better man than Shakespeare.
How about that?
He's lasted. You can't deny that. He's a good name.
I'll buy that.
I think that's it. Shakespeare.
Hey, how about that? I knew I'd come across with a good idea. How old would he be? How old?
Let's see. He was born in 15-something. That would make him about 400 years old.
Man, I'd sure like to collect his back Social Security.
Stand out all night in a rain.
Some people have a very strong...
Why did I have to be
Arthur, what gold?
I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
1:15. I don't mind standing here in the rain, but we can't keep these newsreel boys here all night.
We're going to see this through, Tommy.
What's she got in there?
Nothing, just an empty soundstage. When I left, she was just sitting in there in the dark. Now she'll probably knock on the door when she's ready.
Hey, Tommy! What? Who you got in there?
Fellas, I'd tell you if I could. All I can say is it's a surprise. The biggest surprise in show business.
Hang on to him, Tommy. This will make the cover of Life. Hey, that's it.
Get those cameras ready, guys. Hey, how about those knives? Get everything set? Here she comes.
This is what we've been waiting for. All right, slide back to the door, boys.
Wait a minute, Arthur.
What?
What's the matter? Hold everything.
All right, hold everything, boys. What's the matter, Maury?
We've been checking up in the legal department. Arthur, you got to get rid of all these reporters and newsreels.
Hey, what is this?
Oh, why?
Listen, the thing's a washout if it gets out.
Just a minute, Mrs. Tidball.
You can't write a binding contract with this guy. If Metro finds out you've got him, they'll have him in Culver City by tomorrow morning.
But how?
The guy's been dead 3 centuries. He's public domain.
Oh, I never thought of that. Tommy, clear these guys out of here.
Oh, Lord. Gang, I'm terribly sorry, but I'll have to ask you to leave.
I'm terribly sorry, Arthur, but ectoplasm just won't stand up in court.
Ah, that's okay, Maury. You're right.
Well, I guess I'll be getting back to the legal department.
Maury, don't go away. All right, I'm coming, Mrs. Tidball. Give me a hand, Maury. All right.
Mr. Green, I should like to present Mr. Shakespeare.
Hey, Arthur.
Yes.
Where are we taking him?
The Beverly Wilshire. I've reserved a suite for him.
Hey, don't you think it's kind of strange? He hasn't said anything.
Give the guy a chance, will you? Listen.
Gentlemen, I beg your forgiveness. I've been through a most harrowing experience. It seemed almost that I had been dead.
But you...
Maury, how are you feeling, Mr. Shakespeare?
Strange. Quite strange. What manner of conveyance is this?
Why, this is an automobile. You didn't have these in Stratford-on-the-Avon, did you?
This is not Stratford. What place is this?
Wilshire Boulevard.
Yes, we're in Beverly Hills.
In England?
Oh, no, in California, the United States of America.
I have never even heard of these places. In what direction do they lie from England?
Why, west.
Not Ireland.
Oh, far to the west, across the ocean.
The New World?
Yes.
But I thought there were only savages here. Do they know of this in England?
Well, here we are.
Now, you be very careful, sir. The sidewalk's very slippery.
To what king does this palace belong?
Come right inside.
Why, it's like day.
All right, go over to the desk and register. It's room 704. We don't want to attract any attention in the lobby.
Don't worry about his clothes. Any place else in the country, yes. But in Hollywood, they'll just think he's another dress extra. I'll see you upstairs.
This way, Mr. Shakespeare. The elevators are back here.
Elevators?
Yes. And now, I know that this is going to seem very confusing to you. I can offer no explanation, but this is the 20th century.
20th century?
Well, somehow we've been able to bring you back from the past. I hope you're not angry or annoyed.
Angry? Why, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. What an idea for a play.
Going up. 7, please.
What's happening?
We're going up.
Well, hey, nonny.
7 out.
Does this contrivance also descend?
Yes.
I should like to descend.
Descend, please.
Okay.
Oh, yes, this is...
That's
very
far
pleasant.
enough. Back to 7,
Yes,
please.
I like this. Up now.
This is our floor. This is where we get out.
Oh, no, please. I want to elevate some more. Elevate and descend. Elevate and descend. All night.
Well, where is he?
You know as much as I do. We sent a car over for him at 10 o'clock. He'd already left the hotel.
It's simple. He's a phony. He got scared.
I got his name on a contract last night. I had a handwriting expert and 2 Shakespeare scholars over this morning to look at his signature. There's no doubt about it. He's the McCoy.
It's 1 o'clock. Does ectoplasm eat?
I don't know. All I'm afraid of is that Xana got a hold of him. Come in.
Hi. Hi.
Who are you?
Well, don't you recognize me with my beard off?
Why, Mr. Shakespeare. Where did you get those clothes?
You like them? I've been shopping. This doublet is so much more comfortable than the old-fashioned ones, and look at the colors.
Yes. This is the head of our story department, Bill Mosher.
Hi.
Hi.
This is the most wondrous town I have ever seen.
Have you had lunch?
Already I have had strange and toothsome sweetmeats. Nut burgers.
Won't you sit down, Mr. Shakespeare?
Thank you.
Now, I would like to tell you a little about our business here. We produce motion pictures.
Motion pictures?
Yes, it's a lot like the Globe Theater, Mr. Shakespeare, only we can do anything you can imagine with sound and color and music. And we could show the same performance at the same time in 500 different cities.
Nothing in your world would astonish me.
Well, you understand, of course, that your reappearance, shall we say, is of a very startling nature. Now, for your sake, we want to keep it quiet so that you can enjoy your return. We think it's best to keep your name and your identity a secret.
Whatever you say.
Now, while you're here, you're on your own. Write what you want to write anytime you want to write it. Now, we're sure that it will be box office.
Studio has a lot of confidence in you, Mr. Shakespeare.
Do you mind if we call you Bill?
I prefer Will.
Mosher, show our new writer to his cottage and introduce him to his secretary. We expect great things of you, Will.
Here's Act Two of Spencer Tracy's favorite story. We rejoin our star, Vincent Price, as he brings to life the somewhat confused author of The Comedy of Errors. A peculiarly talented woman named Mrs. Tidball has managed to bring William Shakespeare back from the past, and he finds himself under contract to a big motion picture studio. However, the Bard of Stratford-on-Avon seems to be causing the studio executives a great deal of trouble.
I finished typing what you gave me, Mr.
Just Will.
It's quite difficult working for someone when you don't even know his last name.
Oh, last names are a nuisance. I wish your name were only Anne.
It is.
But nothing else. I once knew a woman named Anne.
You loved her.
It was a long time ago. Here, now, let me see that manuscript.
Oh, I like it. It's a beautiful sonnet. Nobody writes them anymore.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's so strong. It's almost Shakespearean.
What did you say?
It's like Shakespeare.
How did you know?
Well, I studied him in school. I've read everything he wrote.
You studied me in school?
I beg your pardon.
Where did you pick up that name, Shakespeare?
Everybody knows Shakespeare.
Do they?
Certainly, right here in your own bookcase. Here, look at it.
The complete works of William Shakespeare, illustrated and annotated. For the love of heaven, where did they ever dig up this stuff? The Tempest, Coriolanus, Measure for Measure, that old wheeze. Romeo and Juliet. Say, as I remember, that one wasn't so bad. Twelfth Night, Hamlet. I used to play the ghost in that. I was sensational. Now, where the devil did they get a hold of these folios? I never even had copies of some of these myself. Look, here, in As You Like It. I remember when I made up this scene, it sagged in rehearsal. I thought up these changes and gave them to Burbage, and he memorized them. I never even set them down on paper. Oh, no. This part they have wrong. This isn't the way we used to do it. What the deuce is this? Titus Andronicus, indeed? I never wrote that tripe. Oh, Anne, you think I'm mad?
No.
I can't explain. You're crying.
What would my mother back in Elyria, Ohio, say if she knew that I was secretary to... You see, the only other job I ever had in Hollywood was working for Stanley Roberts on an Abbott and Costello picture.
Well, what's wrong with Abbott and Costello? I wish I had them at the Globe.
May I come in?
Oh, come on in, Mr. Green.
How are you doing?
I've just finished something for you.
Oh, you have, huh?
Yes, here it is. See what you think of it.
But this is poetry.
Great poetry.
Well, it's very nice, but we have no use for poetry.
You told me to write whatever I pleased.
Well, what we need from you is plays, screenplays, something commercial.
Plays? I never wanted to write plays. I'm a poet, a sonneteer.
But it's not box office. We've got to have something to show in movie theaters.
Oh. After 3 centuries, I thought maybe people would learn to appreciate beautiful words by themselves without having them strung on stale plots. I was wrong. Anne, take a tragedy. Well, let me have another cup of coffee, mine host.
Cream and sugar?
No, black. Very black. Spike, you're an intelligent citizen. I might even say a man of distinction. Suppose you were walking down Hollywood Boulevard. You see in bright lights in front of Grauman's Chinese, Romeo and the Cat People. What would you do?
Is Simone in it?
Granted.
I'd go.
Would it influence your behavior at the box office to know that Romeo and the Cat People was based on an omelet by William Shakespeare?
Here's your coffee.
Romeo and the Cat People. Oh, hello, Anne.
Will, everybody at the studio's been trying to find you.
Welcome to Barney's Beanery, milady, the Mermaid Tavern with a jukebox.
Where did you go after they finished showing the rough cut?
Anne, where would any intelligent man go after seeing that picture?
But everybody at the studio's very happy with it. All they want's a little rewrite on the ending. That's why I've been looking for you.
Just a little rewrite on the ending. And you know better than that. They should throw the whole thing out and start afresh. Especially that title. The Capulet Family. I could take almost everything except the scene where Judge Capulet has a man-to-man talk with his son.
They want a sequel.
Oh, I'll give them sequels. Romeo's Blonde Trouble. Romeo and Juliet Haunt a House. Romeo's Swing Fever. Romeo and the Cobra Woman. Can I interest you in some black coffee?
I liked your first script. It's a shame they brought in all those other writers.
Have you seen today's Variety? The studio's dickering to sell my story on the radio as a summer replacement for Milton Berle. They want to call it A Date with Juliet.
Will, don't give up. You know why they do things like this, because they're afraid. They know these things work, and they're afraid to try anything else. But you can show them how.
Your lip rouge is on crooked.
Will, you're 400 years away.
300.
Don't go back.
Give me the script. I'll fix the ending.
I'll see you in the morning. I'd better go.
What's her trouble?
She's in love.
With you?
No. No, she's in love with a state of mind. She hasn't found the body to go with it.
Oh, she's lovely. She's the kind of gal you like to write about. She's alive, you know?
You a writer?
I think so. Hey, listen to this. I just wrote it down. The jukebox's mourners. You like it?
Good line.
You a writer, too?
Yes. How old are you?
22. Oh, I don't know where I get off calling myself a writer. I never sold anything. But it's all there. As if I had it in my fist. Words and lines they want to sing.
Do you put them down?
Well, I got a closet full of them. But there's no beginning and middle and ending. They just flow. Nobody buys that kind of stuff.
Well, then give them what they want to buy.
I don't know how to write plots. Stories, that's what they want, but I can't come up with any new storylines.
You know why? There aren't any. Ever read any Shakespeare?
Sure.
That guy never had an original plot in his life. The Comedy of Errors is a steal from the Menachmi by Plautus. As You Like It is straight out of Rosalind by Tom Lodge. Hamlet's just a rewrite job. Romeo and Juliet was lifted title and all from a dull little dilly by Arthur Brooke called Romeos and Juliet. But do you know what he gave that old stuff? He gave it heat. And a few good lines.
Yeah.
You know what Shakespeare had when he was 22? The same thing you have. A fist full of words.
My name's Jimmy O'Neill. What's yours?
Me? Oh, call me Francis Bacon.
Call for Mr. Hellman. Mr. Jack Hellman. Telephone, please.
Ah, well. Good evening, Mr. Will. Welcome to the Brown Derby.
Good evening, Chilius. How are you?
Never better. You use your table, sir?
No, not tonight, Chilius. You can put me up front, right here.
So, we put you right here.
Thanks. You're holding my other reservation?
A table for two, Mr. O'Neill, right?
That's right. And, Chilius, put them in your famous corner booth across the dining room.
Ah, eavesdropper, eh?
No, I'm playing Puck tonight, and I want to hear what goes on. The way every word from that booth carries clear over here is one of the wonders of Hollywood. What a great acoustical accident.
You think it was an accident?
Oh, hey, there's Jimmy and Ann now. Be sure they get the right table.
Leave them to me.
Thank you.
Here we are, Mr. O'Neill. A table for you and the young lady.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Waiter, a menu for Mr. O'Neill. Everything is set. How's the reception, sir?
Fine.
Man, you know, the first time I saw you, you hit me smack between the eyes, you know? But, well, I never thought we'd ever have a date like this.
You haven't told me yet how you got my phone number.
Oh, that's a secret. Let's order. They have pot roast
Can you
on the
see
wagon
them from
with
where
potato
you're standing, Chilius?
Yes.
Are they sitting close to each other?
Well, so. A foot and a half, maybe.
I'd like to order from the wagon, too.
Oh, we like the same kind of things. That's good.
What else do you like, Jimmy?
Oh, spaghetti, open cars, Joe Stafford, all kinds of things, lots of things, almost everything.
Great Dane?
Oh, love them.
Chilius, how far apart are they now?
Oh, 8, 9 inches, maybe.
You've seen a lot of couples come and go, Chilius. To your expert eye, do those two look like star-crossed lovers?
I don't know. This young lady still needs a little defrosting.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Chilius, I want to close my account as of tonight.
Oh, you're going away?
Yes. Yes, I'm going away.
Flash, they're about 4 inches apart now.
You know what kind of poetry I like? I'm a sonnet man myself.
Well, what do you know?
I like the real old sonnets best.
Oh, me too. This one's my favorite. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?
Hey!
Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date.
They're holding hands. No inches now.
The old stuff still works. By heavens, I'm still in there pitching.
Well, there you have it. An approximate idea of what might happen if William Shakespeare had tried to write for the movies. Jerome Lawrence and Robert E. Lee imagined this fantasy called Mr. Shakespeare, and Spencer Tracy chose it as his favorite story. Vincent Price, who always gives such fine performances, gave us one more in the role of William Shakespeare. Vincent, we've really enjoyed having you with us on Favorite Story.
Thank you, Ronnie. It was a pleasure to be with you here on Favorite Story. You know, a lot of actors have the opportunity to play Shakespearean roles, but it's not very often an actor has a chance to play Shakespeare.
By the way, Vincent, our listeners may be interested to know that your secretary in this favorite story was Betsy Blair of the Broadway stage, known in these parts as Mrs. Jean Kelly. And the actor who played Chilius, the famous head waiter of the Hollywood Brown Derby, was Chilius, the famous head waiter of the Hollywood Brown Derby. Our thanks to all the cast, to Claude Sweeten for his splendid music, and to Spencer Tracy, who will soon be seen in another picture from Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the studio which films so many of your favorite stories. Next week, a special treat for all you baseball fans, Casey at the Bat, the exciting and nostalgic story about the good old days in the Bush Leagues. It's the favorite story of the baseball immortal Tris Speaker, and it will star Lionel Stander as the mighty Casey and sports commentator Hal Berger as the manager of the Mudville Nine. We hope you'll be listening.
Welcome back. This is pretty unusual for an episode of Favorite Story. The typical Favorite Story episode is a novel, play, or short story, often from many years ago or in the public domain. As this is an original radio script being done, this is a bit unique. The intro states that the program had been performed and was popular with American servicemen. Likely this series hadn't been heard outside of an AFRS broadcast, which has been lost to time, although apparently Spencer Tracy had heard it. The play was written by Lawrence and Lee, who founded the Armed Forces Radio Services while they were serving in the Army. They'd go on to become major forces in the radio industry. They wrote adaptations for all of the stories that they did on Favorite Story. They also wrote stories for series such as The Railroad Hour. They'd later go on to have success on the stage, writing the original script for the play Inherit the Wind, and also as well as plays like Mamie and The Night Thoreau Spent in Jail. This radio play is actually interesting because after a somewhat odd start, please don't ask me to explain how the ectoplasmically bringing Shakespeare back thing worked, because I don't know, and I don't think you do either. You get into a fair but standard critique or parody of Hollywood. Telling your secretary to take a tragedy is a hilarious line. Of course, while many of the ideas of the lack of creativity in Hollywood are still true, you'd need to update it today. Romeo and the Cat People would be a 7-episode serialized event on Disney+. And Will would be expected to come up with multiple spin-offs and build a Romeo and the Cat People extended universe. The fish out of water stuff is also fun as well. The idea of Shakespeare being obsessed with elevators is genius. But the question is, where do you go with a story like this? Because it's a great premise, but it's like, how do you land this thing? Because I think it's dealing with serious questions in a lot way. This is a story that's about creativity in the mass media age, where you have systems that reward mediocrity and repeating the same old thing. What do you do in response to that? And Will has a cynical feeling about it, and understandably feels exasperated. But seeing a young writer in need of advice forces him to take stock and understand what he was able to do. And he realized and appreciated that. And I think there's a sense, the way the story's written, that he's initially dissatisfied with his life's work. I mean, because there's a reason why he is so enthused to be back. Because he views it, I'm going to have a chance to go ahead and write what I want, which in this case is just going to be poetry without having to come up with plot. And he quickly finds out, no, that's not how the movie business works. And so he finds himself doing something similar to what he, again, for the sake of the story, didn't want to do in the first place in his own time. But then as he's explaining to the young writer about the secret of being Shakespeare and where Shakespeare got his plots and what he did with them, there is kind of a realization of, actually, I did something good. I did what I needed to do to communicate what I felt needed communicated through a medium that would really resonate with my audience. And what they do say about the origins of Shakespeare's plays in here is absolutely true. With all but one of his plays, there are a whole lot of sources that really inspired, and, he changed a thing here, combined some things there. There is one exception to that, and that is The Tempest, which is actually one of my favorite of his plays. Everything else was inspired or adapted from something else. The point is that no matter what, there are just so many plots. But you put your own spin on them and your own heart into them, and you can create something beautiful. And I think that realization makes Will more at peace about his work. And I like the fact that the one thing he wanted to do before he disappeared was just to make sure that those two kids got together. Vincent Price was great in this as always. It was an interesting role in that it requires a lot of comedy, the sort of fish out of water stuff and the Hollywood parody, but then you bring the drama at the end. His reaction to hearing the young man read some of his poetry, "The old stuff still works," was really, I think, beautifully delivered and touching in the way that Price performed it. So an excellent story, and now we turn to talking about an Egg Grows in Gotham and the Yegg Foes in Gotham. The basic plot is that Egghead learns that Gotham City is leased to the first families of Gotham by a Mohican Indian tribe of which there is only one living member, aka the last of the Mohicans. The families have to provide 9 raccoon pelts every 5 years. If Egghead can stop them from delivering those pelts, it'll break the lease and allow him to take over Gotham City. So let's talk about Egghead. What can you say about him as a villain? Well, he's excellent, and he's exceptional. I'm sorry, just had to do a little bit of that. Egghead, along with King Tut, are probably the two most iconic original villains of the 1966 series. And of course, by original villains, I mean those that are original to the series. We've talked about Joker, Penguin, and Mr. Freeze. And of course, there's the Riddler and Catwoman, but all of those have comic book origins. Egghead does not. Now, on paper, you don't think he would be all that iconic or interesting. Egghead is a genius egg-themed villain with sidekicks Benedict and Fu Young, who makes egregious egg puns. But once again, style and performance are so critical. Egghead's probably the best designed original villain. He's given this white suit with yellow trim and with a yellow shirt, which really does build that whole egg image. Plus, there's Vincent Price's makeup. Egghead is bald, Vincent Price wasn't, and the way that they managed that, you couldn't just do a bald cap. There was a real bit of makeup to not only make him look bald, but also to give his head an egg shape. So this was some intricate work for 1966. And the makeup job isn't perfect, but I think the way it's done really has an effect of making him a figure who looks unsettling without taking that too far, particularly for family television. And then there's Price's performance, and really it's at the same level as Batman's biggest villains. Price manages the comedy and also the eccentricity, along with the occasional bits of menace to the part. The episode Cliffhanger is a great example of this. Batman figures out Egghead's plot. The Waynes are one of the 3 founding families, and Batman calls the leaders of the other 2 as Bruce Wayne, who assure him everything's fine. However, in reality, they've actually already been caught by Egghead, who's threatening them if they speak up. He is also driving the limousine carrying them, which also picks up Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson. As long as Egghead holds them past midnight, then the lease on Gotham City will lapse, and then he will be able to become the new renter and absolute ruler of Gotham City. But that's not all he has on his very significant brain, because you see, Egghead has been doing some calculation and has figured out that being Batman cost a lot of money, and that the most likely candidate to be Batman is one of the 3 millionaires before him. And the other two can be eliminated from consideration, so therefore Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Egghead is going to use his sinister mind-stealing machine to steal Bruce's mind, uncover his secrets, and leave him forever a shell of himself, destroying Batman forever. It's a great cliffhanger, even though it's foiled in the next episode by an obvious villain oversight that leads Egghead to conclude Bruce Wayne is not Batman. Again, it's still an incredibly well-acted scene at the end of the first episode by Price. Regardless, even though the millionaires got away, they missed the midnight deadline to provide the raccoon pelts, so Egghead leases Gotham City, takes over the police force, drives Batman and Robin to the edge of town, and orders the police to shoot them on sight if they enter the city again. The story also has some really interesting old-time radio connections. I thought I recognized the voice of one of the millionaires, and I did. It was the voice of Stephen Dunn, who actually was the second voice of Sam Spade. Now, of course, we had an episode that featured the first voice of Sam Spade, Howard Duff, a few weeks back. So that was a neat connection. Then you also have Ben Alexander making an appearance, dressed as he was when he played Frank Smith, and asking a complaining citizen during the reign of lawlessness brought about by eggheads to provide just the facts, ma'am. So I've got a t-shirt that says, Joe Friday never said just the facts, ma'am, but apparently Frank Smith did in the Batman 66 universe. So doesn't technically count. But another key actor to appear in this, even in a minor role, this was the episode where Burt Mustin appeared in Batman. Mustin was born in 1884 and worked as an actor well into his 90s. And during probably the first quarter century of television, he was everything. I initially think of him from Dragnet and Adam 12, where he had some memorable guest roles. He had a recurring role on the Andy Griffith Show. He was on the Brady Bunch, The Virginian, Sanford and Son, Adam 12. I mean, literally the amount of programs that this guy was going on into his late 80s and early 90s is mind-blowing. Here in this episode of Batman, he's playing Old MacDonald, because you see, once Egghead loses control of Gotham, under a section of the city charter, which was the next sentence after the one that Egghead used to take over the lease, he flees with the loot and plans to lay low for a while before escaping the country. However, Batman figures out Egghead's weakness. You see, Egghead is addicted to eggs. He has a major egg habit. And unfortunately for him, only one farm in Gotham is going to be able to support that habit, with him not able to access grocery stores due to being a wanted man. So we get our final showdown at Old MacDonald's farm. And there is a glorious egg fight. And if you've ever wondered, could Old MacDonald Has a Farm be turned into epic fight music? The answer is yes. It's a glorious fight scene. It's helped by Egghead's active participation. A lot of the guest villains didn't mix it up. They just kind of stood back and let their faceless thugs handle all the fight choreography. But Vincent Price got into it, at least in this one. I did learn that he did return as Egghead in 3 episodes in season 3 and didn't do his fights because he had a partner in crime who kind of brought her own army along. I love the fight scenes. I loved all the egg puns that were tossed about by everyone in the episode. I thought there were some really fun cameos, and I love Vincent Price. In terms of drawbacks, the silliest conceit of the episode is that the city charter has to be stolen to find out what it says. The big opening criminal act for the episode is Egghead stealing the city charter to find out how the lease works and how he might be able to get in on it, and Batman and Robin, disguised as Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, having to steal the charter again to find the exception. And, in real life, if a document is important, you will transcribe it somewhere where the words can be read. But that's just one of those things, it's silly, but you just go with it. I should also note that the last of the Mohicans is played by Edward Everett Horton as a very dumb and stereotypical trope. The degree to which that's going to detract from your enjoyment will kind of depend on how you engage with older material that has these sort of performances in it. For my part, even beyond any sort of issue of racial sensitivity, I did not enjoy the character at all. I think that it kind of just went for cheap laughs in that direction, and I think Batman was generally better than that. And certainly Edward Everett Horton was capable of being better than that. Like the whole idea that he was the last of the Mohicans. Essentially, they make a joke out of evoking the story, The Last of the Mohicans. That is not in and of itself in any way funny. All in all, though, I think that Vincent Price's Egghead was really a triumph, and it was a pretty strong episode in Season 2. Alright, well, listener comments and feedback now. And we go to Instagram, where Brains Benton wrote, regarding the Magnificent Montague, this was a fun episode to listen to. Carney did a great job as a blowhard classical actor, much different than his famous Honeymooners character. I liked the discussion about the Archer character from Batman too. Well, thank you so much. Now it is time for us to thank our Patreon supporter of the day, and I want to go ahead and thank Javon, Patreon supporter since November 2018. Currently supporting the podcast at the Detective Sergeant level of $7.14 or more per month. Thank you so much for your support. It is truly appreciated, and that will actually be all for now. We will be back next week with another Batman villain in Old Time Radio. Please join us then. Same bat time, same bat podcast.